The Iranian regime's significant role in the ongoing pro-Hamas protests in the U.S. was finally acknowledged on July 9 by Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines. In recent weeks, Iranian government actors have sought to opportunistically take advantage of ongoing protests regarding the war in Gaza, using a playbook we've seen other actors use over the years. We have observed actors tied to Iran's government posing as activists online, seeking to encourage protests, and even providing financial support to protesters. Haines made it sound as if the Iranian regime had been sitting on its hands until recent weeks, but apparently Iranian government agents have been active all along in stoking the protests, including in Ivy League universities such as Harvard and Princeton. According to Jason M. Brodsky, Policy Director of United Against Nuclear Iran, UANI, and a non-resident scholar at the Middle East Institute's Iran program. Iran's foreign ministry cultivates relationships with media outlets and think tanks in the United States and Europe to influence policymaking in directions that serve its interests. Tehran has also been actively engaged in, at the minimum, encouraging American and European protest activity after the October 7th massacre, both physically and online. Iran's Intelligence Ministry, MOIS, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, intelligence organization dominate this space. Months before Haines' statement, this could be seen in reports from the United Kingdom that counterterrorism police had identified individuals linked to Iran's regime present on the fringes of anti-Israel rallies there. In advance of demonstrations, a memo allegedly written by an IRGC intelligence official urged significant support measures for April 15th and other rallies with the aim to achieve Israel's political isolation. Iran has made no secret of the immense importance it places on the U.S. protests as a way to export its Islamic revolution. They have been making it clear that the regime sees the protesters at U.S. campuses as an Iranian fifth column in America to be used in the future. American-educated Tehran University professor Fouadizadeh, a mouthpiece for the Iranian regime and considered by some as one of Iran's main experts on the U.S., said on April 26, 2024, "We are watching the demonstrations, and we like what we see, but it should not end with this. These protesters are our people and will support Iran in an Iran-U.S. confrontation. Iran can repeat in the U.S. what it did in Lebanon, but on a grander scale because the Hezbollah-style groups in the U.S. are much larger than in Lebanon." Iran's Supreme Guide, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, thanked U.S. students in May for their efforts on behalf of the Iranian cause. "Dear university students in the United States of America, this message is an expression of our empathy and solidarity with you. As the page of history is turning, you are standing on the right side of it. You have now formed a branch of the resistance front and have begun an honorable struggle in the face of your government's ruthless pressure, a government which openly supports the usurper and brutal Zionist regime." Iran was also behind the campus protests at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, and possibly also other universities, Iran International found. An analysis by the American cybersecurity company XPOZ, also cited by Iran International, showed a high percentage of inauthentic accounts primarily written in Farsi, coming from Iranians inside Iran linked to the regime and IRGC, fueling the campus protests at McGill. The primary takeaway is that there is a massive activity, funded, coordinated, and organized by a foreign government that is influencing Canadians in Canada and driving incitement to violence and real-world activity, one of the XPOZ analysts said. According to the analysts, 60% of pro-Palestine campus protesters were not authentic online users. The data indicates the presence of coordinated Farsi-speaking accounts, suggesting a targeted campaign. By comparison, 75% of commentators critical of the encampment were authentic. XPOZ analysts said their data demonstrate that Canada is subject to the use of deceptive mass influence campaigns coordinated by foreign governments, like Iran, to target Canadian society through proxies to deepen divides and threaten national security. The New York Times has described how Code Pink went from criticizing China's human rights violations to defending its reportedly genocidal treatment of Muslim Uyghurs after Singham, in 2017, married Jody Evans, the co-founder of Code Pink. Singham, a longtime admirer of Mao Zedong, lives in Shanghai, where he helps promote the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, while his wife defends China. "If the U.S. crushes China," she said in 2021, "it would cut off hope for the human race and life on Earth." Code Pink is currently under investigation for its ties to the CCP by the House Committee on Natural Resources. Singham is also the primary sponsor of the People's Forum, an organization advocating and educating for a communist revolution in the U.S. The People's Forum has also helped to organize many anti-Israel protests, including walkouts from New York City public schools where students were told to chant a slogan that advocates the destruction of Israel. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Significantly, the People's Forum was behind the three-day conference in Detroit, People's Conference for Palestine. At the conference, the People's Forum's executive director Manolo de los Santos, to great applause, called for the complete destruction of the United States. We have to bring down this empire with 1 million cuts, and those 1 million cuts have to come from every sector of struggle in this room. I know all of you in this movement are exhausted, but it is not about gathering and talking. It is about transforming that work into action. From July 9th to August 15th, emboldened by previous protests, the People's Forum organized a summer school, teaching students, organizers, and would-be revolutionaries and protesters to fight for the destruction of the U.S., which it described as an unprecedented mass movement for Palestine has taken the world by storm, igniting a profound shift in the consciousness of millions, while the U.S. ruling class, desperate to maintain its hegemony, struggles to fulfill its imperialist agenda amidst serious political crisis. How do we organize for revolution? Bi-weekly classroom sessions, discussion, and revolutionary study. A chance to meet new friends and comrades, study, discuss, debate, and then put theory into practice. The People's Forum closely coordinates with other radical and revolutionary organizations such as Answer Coalition, whose director Brian Becker gave a class at the summer school, which was behind a violent demonstration in Washington, D.C. in July, during which rioters burned American flags, defaced the Columbus Monument, and assaulted U.S. Park police officers. According to NGO Monitor, Answer Coalition, along with a multitude of pro-Hamas organizations, including Code Pink, Palestinian Feminist Collective, Students for Justice in Palestine Chicago, American Muslims for Palestine Chicago, National Lawyers Guild, Task Force on the Americas/San Francisco Bay Area Chapter, Answer Coalition, Chicago, Samadown Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, Jewish Voice for Peace Chicago, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, U.S. Palestinian Community Network, USPCN, and National Students for Justice in Palestine are planning to march on the DNC on August 19th to 22nd, when the Democratic Party is scheduled to host its convention in Chicago. Pro-Hamas protests in the U.S. are also lavishly funded by a multitude of other donors, many of whom, it appears, are the very same ones that bankroll the Democratic presidential campaign. Pro-Palestinian protesters are backed by a surprising source. Biden's biggest donors, Politico revealed in May. The donors include some of the biggest names in Democratic circles: Soros, Rockefeller, and Pritzker. Finally, the Biden-Harris administration itself, and therefore taxpayer money, is funding the protests through the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. U.S. Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican West Virginia, Vice Chairman of the Senate Republican Conference and ranking member of the Environment and Public Works, EPW, Committee, discussed oversight findings from the EPW committee that revealed a $50 million grant was awarded from the EPA through the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, to Climate Justice Alliance, a group that engages in pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, and anti-Semitic activities. No wonder that the Biden-Harris administration and the politicized agencies of U.S. intelligence are trying to cover the whole thing up by pretending that most protests, in the words of John Kirby, are organic and in good faith. They are not. They are used by a multitude of actors seeking the overthrow of the United States, and by extension the West, to galvanize new cohorts of student revolutionaries to destroy the U.S. Nothing less. And they are making no secret about it. They are blaring it all out on social media, while U.S. officials shamefully use disinformation to confuse the American public. It is time for Congress and the rest of America finally to wake up.